How do you clarify or explain your supporting detail in order to give the reader a clearer understanding of what it is you're talking about? In this lesson, you will learn how to elaborate on a supporting detail by writing hypothetical details. Let's review a moment. Persuasive writing is a type of writing where the author states his or her opinion about a topic and then proves that opinion true using evidence. The ultimate goal of persuasive writing is to get the reader to agree with whatever it is the author is arguing. So for instance, if the author is arguing that doing 1 hour of homework a night teaches middle schoolers responsibility, then by the time the reader is done reading that essay, she should also believe that doing 1 hour of homework a night teaches middle schoolers responsibility. As a writer, especially a writer of persuasive essays, you must make your argument easy for the reader to understand. This means that you avoid asking the reader to make inferences, and that you always work to connect the arguments to the topic sentence and to the thesis statement. This ensures that the reader understands what's going on, and there's therefore far more likely to agree with whatever the argument is. So we're talking about elaboration, and specifically, we're talking about information that will be put into the body paragraphs. Elaboration, even more specifically, is information found in the body paragraphs that clarifies or explains the supporting details. It gets more specific about whatever the supporting detail is claiming. The other thing that elaboration does is it connects everything back to the original arguments, the argument in the topic sentence and the argument in the thesis statement. One type of elaboration that you can use as a writer is a hypothetical detail. A hypothetical detail is an example that may not have actually happened, but could logically happen. It's similar to an anecdote in that it can be sort of a story, but an anecdote is something that is actually true. So the way to write a hypothetical detail is to first write your supporting detail in essay format. After you've done that, ask yourself, can I think of a logical example to support this? Once you've done that, you're then going to write down that example in 1 to 3 sentences. And finally, you're going to connect the hypothetical detail back to the topic sentence and maybe the thesis statement. So what you have here is your outline, and what we're doing is we're turning the outline into an essay. So the first thing you want to do is you want to write the topic sentence. One reason cell phones shouldn't be allowed in school is that they disrupt classes. So now I take the first supporting detail and I add a transition word. For instance, cell phones ring in the middle of lessons. Now I have to ask myself, can I think of a logical example for this? Right? If I'm going to be saying to the reader that, look, cell phones can ring in the middle of lessons, what I need to be able to do is explain why they're going to ring in the middle of lessons. So you'd say, for instance, if a student forgets to turn off his ringer, the phone is likely to ring at some point during the day. So now I ask myself, well, okay, if the phone's likely to ring at some point during the day, fine, but how is that disruptive? How does this connect back to the topic sentence? So I tell the reader, okay, well, this is disruptive because it can cause problems. It can cause problems because it disrupts the flow of the class. So I have to continue to get a little bit more specific. All right, it can disrupt the flow of the lesson because by the time the student is able to turn off the ringer, and by the time the teacher is able to get the class refocused again, then learning time has been lost because that can take a moment depending on the class, depending on the teacher. So, it's pretty clear that if learning time is lost, then it was a disruption, and if it was a disruption, then they shouldn't be allowed. So the way to do this again is to first write your supporting detail in essay format. Then you want to ask yourself, can I think of a logical example for the supporting detail? Once you've done that, write down that example in 1 to 3 sentences. And finally, connect the hypothetical detail back to the topic sentence. In this lesson, you have learned how to elaborate on supporting details by writing hypothetical details.